to do is, all those kids, we need to have a plan to equip them, to skill them, what their interest is. Of course, they don't want to go to school or they're not good in studies, but we need to skill them and make them equipped. So when they come out after 15 years, 16 year age, they can get on with any trade, so that they can get on with their life. Of course, they have tough times at their school, the broken family, various issues, family circumstance. But we need to give them hope, these young kids. They're talented. And we need to give them hope, and we need to have a youth education program. So when they turn 16, 17, they've got a skill. They can get on with their life and be independent. And that's what we need to invest in on those kids. And that's definitely I will take up further. And it's a serious issue. I'm constantly hearing that. It's a very serious issue. Coming on to the crime, of course, it comes under the ACT government. It's a local issue. But we need to equip these police and police force with a lot of insufficient resources. They're saying that, we don't have enough cars for patrolling, doing the patrolling in the night time. All these things. They're under-resourced. That's a sad reality. But it comes under the purview of ACT government, but definitely we need to improve our police presence, particularly in these suburbs. The crime rate is high. We're hearing every day. I don't need to tell you that. Every suburbs. So we need to resource our local police force with sufficient resources. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to start with police are not the answer to this. The answer to this is in ensuring that young people have access to things that they need. Andrew talked about Gunner's Place and the opening of that, and that has been an incredible facility here in Gungahlin, where kids have a place to go that isn't home, that isn't school, that isn't a part-time job. Outside of that, they have nowhere to go. What do you expect them to do? Everything in our society is built without the voice of young people in it. Young people need to be involved in the decisions that affect us, and that includes having safe spaces to go to, being included in society, being valued in society. We need to invest in our young people so that they feel that they have a future here.
I think there's been some really good things put forward. I think investing in young people, investing in youth mental health, investing in youth homelessness. We know that is a huge issue where there's a lack of investment in youth homelessness services. Community sport, we're increasingly seeing families not being able to afford to keep their kids in community sport, or sending them to scouts, to these places where they can actually build community. So I think there's a lot of opportunities. Again, that all takes long-term planning and a vision for the future. On the police, I think this is an issue that gets raised with me by Canberrans, and it is one of these uniquely Canberra sort of federal territory issues where the AFP are the lowest paid police force in the country. They struggle with numbers, which means that the ACT struggles with numbers. And I think this is really something that we should be looking at. We've got a growing population, and you need a well-resourced police to actually deal with the issues that Canberrans expect them to be dealing with.
Thank you. I think we're going to come to the last set of the questions in the interest of time. Just want to touch base on the immigration and so probably we'll just focus on immigration now. So with the plans of immigration, I was looking at the data. We kind of get 500,000 people every year. It's the size of Canberra, or more, almost more, equivalent to the size of Canberra. And I think we're using, immigration as a kind of a false economy to boost the country's kind of a, temporarily fixing. But what we don't realize, if you don't have a proper infrastructure, if you don't have a proper health system, if you don't have a proper education system, then it's all going to end up in a big chaos. And with an aged care and all those things, it's going to impact every single thing. So is the government policy, or is it going to be always depend on immigration, or are we going to use some kind of an approach where we're going to spend some, money in making a big family in Australia or spending more money in, bringing people out of the payment and, make them a job going to be tempting for them so they get, there's a pathway, so that people don't stay in the government payment forever. So I just want to understand, because it's because the increasing the tax is not going to fix anything, because at the moment, if you look at the number of tax that we are paying, rates, we are paying land tax rates, and then a rego, I don't know what, it's like the payroll tax, and then you pay your normal tax. How many more tax do you want people to pay? And is it, are we trying to do this false economy game, and it's going to kind of, it's going to burst sometime, very soon. And I think it's not sustainable. And I just want to see what's an approach, how we want to invest in Australia and make Australia kind of a sustainable and, make sure that we are bringing jobs here rather than outsourcing jobs overseas. So it's kind of a mix of a question. I just want to, put it at the last question so that you can address as well.
I'd just like to add to that.
Yeah, sure.
So first off, I'd like to say thanks, guys, for coming. But looking around the room, you must be just as disappointed as I am. I mean, you got all you guys here and so few of us. And now that must say something to you guys. I saw the Treasurer's debate, the housing debate, the Leaders' debate. And did we get a sensible answer to any of the questions from anyone? We didn't. I've written to politicians over the last decade about energy. I've spoke to Andrew last time we were here about immigration at the end of the session. I've sent emails to David, which I think you've read, not the information that I've sent off, but the information which I thought is valuable from other people such as macrobusiness.com.au who talk about energy. And David's saying sensible things about energy. But to have a sensible chat about immigration, can anyone do that? Now, I came here in 1965 as a 6-year-old. I went to Balgownie Hostel. Okay, it was a little half metal sort of thing. You got a room to sleep in, you go off to a toilet, like a campground, you go off to a canteen and you get food. Lived there for 12 months. I went to Sydney and lived in an old house, the oldest house in the street, the cheapest one that my parents could go in, with a overflowing septic tank out the back. And then from there I moved to Batemans Bay. I lived in a tent in Batemans Bay. I mean, I was an immigrant. I lived in a tent. Yeah, so we lived in a tent for 6 months before we moved into a house. And we got a house at Surf Beach, 2,500 population back then. And the house where I lived in for 12 months, it didn't have floorboards. My parents had a house on the other side, and the house still had the joists on our side, but it was fantastic, as kids, camping out. We had the outside toilet where the guys would come and pick up the poo, once a week, until I think about 74 when they put sewage on. Oh no, we got a septic tank. 75 they put the sewage on. Now I'm an immigrant. I know about immigration. But I tell you, when you've got 26 million people in the country, right, and you bring in 1 million people over 2 years, that's the same as having 25 people living in 25 houses, and then you get one person come in. Or you've got 100 people approximately living in 100 houses, and you've got 4 new people come in. Now, somebody has got to move into somebody else's house because we haven't built any houses for them. What's happened is the immigrants who've come in, a lot of them have got a lot more money than the poor people in Australia, and the people in Australia have had to move out and live in tents just like I did when I came as an immigrant. Now, when you hear Peter Dutton say he's going to reduce immigration by 135,000, what does that mean? It doesn't mean a thing. Because you know what? We're not reducing immigration. We're going to still have immigrants, but how many are we going to have? We cannot get a sensible answer from anybody. What is the answer to our immigration idea? How many people do we want to live in Australia? Why do we want that many people? I mean, why? Why do we want to grow Australia? You want to scrap all the housing rules. You want to bulldoze all the koala habitat. You want to, kick Tanya Plibersek out of an environmental cause because now it's not good because you've got a housing crisis, a self-induced housing crisis. You know, we've had the people in the government tell us that they're going to try and do something about immigration. What? Don't they have any control about who comes in? What kind of government can't even control their immigration bureau? Well, you know, it doesn't make it... No, but it's not just about immigration. It's about listening to Jim Chalmers about the budget, talking with Angus Taylor. Okay, now, if you listen to Jim Chalmers, he's saved the country money. No, he hasn't, because they don't say how much they've spent. Now, if I went to the tax office and say, listen, I budgeted on making $100,000 this year, but I've only made $50,000, can I get a tax refund for the $50,000? Can I claim that as a deduction? No, but that's what Jim Chalmers is trying to do with his budget. He's trying to say that, okay, I've saved all this. He's saved nothing. Just, can please people just tell us the right answer? People don't come up because we're not given answers. People have got... I mean, I'm practically throwing garbage at the TV because I can't believe the rubbish that comes out. Listen to Claire O'Neill today. You know, it's just nuts.
So the question in relation...
The question is, can we get a straight answer about what is your... Do you have an actual plan for the population of Australia? What size should it be and why should it be that size?
Thank you. Andrew, do you want to start?
Well, first of all, since this is our last question, let me thank again Gungahlin Community Council, Henley and the team for putting on tonight's debate. Not often you get to spend 2 hours talking about public policy, and really appreciate the conversation. As an economist, one of the things we often remind people is that immigrants aren't just mouths to feed, but they're also muscles to build and minds to inspire. As a Member of Parliament, I see a lot of cases, for immigration cases coming through the office. Just this week, we've been talking to people who are applying for refugee status to flee from what's going on in Afghanistan. From local builders who are keen to get people in who have the skills in order to build Canberra houses. Families who are looking to bring in a spouse from overseas. So all of those things are going to make up the immigration mix. We have a demand-driven system in Australia in which we set the criteria and then we set what we expect will be the migrant numbers. Under us, we've significantly brought that down from the level that was at under the previous government, as there was a lot of that COVID catch-up migration.
Catch-up. There's no COVID catch-up. When COVID was on, we didn't build anything either. Okay, everything paused. Migration paused, building paused. There's no catch-up because we hadn't caught up with the houses. So we need to actually have the infrastructure in the houses for people to live in. Like I said, you've got 100 people in houses, you bring 4 people in, you've got nowhere for them to live. There's no catch-up. We need to build before they come.
So one of the things that happened after COVID is you had a lot of Australians returning home. You had people coming into universities. Many of the university international students weren't able to take up their places, and they came back in after COVID. And we also had some builders coming in. Migrants are overrepresented in the building sector. So if you want to build more homes, which we're committed to, unlike the previous government, then you need to be bringing those skills. I've talked already about what we're doing in free TAFE in order to train up more people to build Australian houses. But there's also a role for skilled migration in that building process. Australia has benefited in migration through our history, but we need to get the balance right. We brought those numbers down to what we believe is a manageable level and ensuring that we've got the infrastructure in place to support that level of migration.
Thanks, Andrew. Look, that sounded like a Dorothy Dixer. What did you talk about? We wanted a sustainable Australia. How about if we have a party called the Sustainable Australia Party? You want numbers. Now, we hear platitudes about we need the infrastructure in place, and I talked earlier about Gungahlin chasing the numbers coming before the infrastructure is put in place. We're retrofitting the light rail is a reflection of having to retrofit very expensive infrastructure to put into to manage the numbers of people we've got now. Now, we got a good question earlier. Numbers, We want pre-Howard era numbers that we think are sustainable, and I'd like to see a number of something like stabilise at about 30 million in Australia, because again, the vested interests in political parties have this model where a basic human right, which is a roof over your head, is made out as an economic. There are incentives to make profit out of the housing sector, the tax structure, and so on. And again, we are clearing more and more land. I mean, the koala has become endangered in Queensland, New South Wales, and ACT in recent times, and I put that down to habitat destruction. Okay, they keep saying we need to build more houses. Well, there's two sides of the equation. One is supply is the hyper demand. Again, it's driven by government policy, and those vested interests who fund major parties who benefit from this growth, as you put it. Well, I don't know if there's good growth and bad growth. We want to diversify the economy away from this idea of just housing being an economic incentive rather than a human right for people to live in. And you're absolutely right. People are spending a huge proportion of their income on keeping a roof over their head, and that means that money they can't spend on quality of life, and we become wage slaves. You think big banks don't love big mortgages? Well, that's a rhetorical question, obviously. And again, you have to have two incomes to own a house. And yeah, so look, as I said, we're just focusing on this hyper demand. I think that's an area that we need to address.
Thanks, James. Thank you. Look, I'm a migrant. I came to Australia in 1998 as an international student to do my master's degree in business administration. So I myself is a migrant, and I know my immigrants play a very huge role in this country in various sectors. And I'm really proud of the contribution that the migrant community made to this country. But having said that, it's got to be sustainable. The amount of people coming into our country through our immigration program, it's got to be sustainable. As you rightly pointed out in the beginning, in the last 2 years, we got 1 million people came to this country. 1 million people in the last 2 years. It's not sustainable. We can't let people come in like that. You know, the knock-on effect it will have on the housing sector, the health sector, it's got to be sustainable. Yes, I don't have a number in front of me, but all I'm saying is it's got to be sustainable. And that's why we announced a policy of a permanent migration program, 25% decrease, 185,000 to 140,000 in the next 2 years, then increase to 150 and then 160 in a short term. But we can't have an open door policy to have 500,000 people coming into this country every year. It's got to be sustainable. But having said that, I acknowledge the contribution of the immigrant community. You know, Canberra is a diverse city, you know, multicultural city. It's beautiful, but at the same time, it's got to be sustainable.
I recently read a survey that was done about the public's opinion on a multicultural society, and 75% of Australians agreed that multiculturalism was good for Australia. We need to be ensuring that we're supplying houses. We need to make sure that there is enough houses to meet the demand for housing. I think James said that you have to have a two-income household to even afford a house here in Australia. Well, my partner and I, we both work full-time. We still can't afford a house. We need to make sure that supply is meeting demand, and we can't ignore the skills that immigrants bring to Australia. We can't ignore the skills that they bring that we desperately need. We need more doctors. We need more nurses. We need more people that work in skilled labour. We need to bring that into Australia, but we need to make sure that we've got enough houses for everyone.
I just want to echo the thanks for everyone who has turned up and for the opportunity that you're facilitating with this. Part of the question was around tax. Australian half of our let's get a return for it. On immigration, I'm an immigrant too, as I said earlier. Arrived as a 14-year-old, so grateful for the opportunities given me, and Australians recognise we're a multicultural society. It is our strength, something we should recognise. We should also have a plan. And in the absence of a plan, I think we leave ourselves open to fear-mongering, to uncertainty, to dog whistling. And one of the things I've tried to do in the Senate is actually have a Senate inquiry that looks at putting together a plan when it comes to immigration population. So we're not vilifying immigrants. We're not allowing people to hijack the conversation. And that was not supported by the Greens, by Labor, or the Libs. Why don't we have a plan as a country? On housing, I've got a bill that would legislate a 10-year housing and homelessness plan. Seems like a pretty sensible thing to have as a country. Why aren't we having this longer term thinking? Why does Treasury just set immigration numbers every year? Like, it seems no good way to actually run a country if we plan on being here for a long time. And so that's what I'm urging the major parties to do, is to take on board these concerns, not fall into the vilification of immigrants, actually say, let's have a plan for our future.
I think we can sit here forever, but we all have to go home. And thank you so much for all the candidates. Let's give them a big hand. And thank you so much for coming down tonight. So we're going to give you a big hand. Give yourself a big hand. And for the audience who joined us through online as well. So thank you so much, and all the best to all the candidates. So hope you all.
And food.
Yeah,
Please take a plate of food.
Yeah. And thank you so much for coming down tonight. We really appreciate it. All the best for you. And all the questions, please think through. And then if you need to refine your alignment and understand the community sensation, that'll be great. So thank you, and all the best, and have a good night. God bless. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Good stuff. Thank you. Well done. Good stuff.
Thank you.